This special pharmacy podcast series is sponsored by First Financial Bank, leaders in financial expertise, lending, and independent pharmacy business expansion. In this podcast series, you'll hear from First Financial Bank's Pharmacy Managing Director, Larry Alexander, with over 16 years in pharmacy business growth experience, and veteran and pharmacy business expert, Bob Graul, who has over 30 years in business development strategy for expanding pharmacy businesses. We will also hear from First Financial Bank customer, pharmacy owner and operator, and business consultant, Owen Bondurant. And now, here's the founder and CEO of Pharmacy Podcast Network and series host, Todd Eury.
Hey, Pharmacy Podcast Network fans, listeners, sponsors. This is Todd Eury, founder of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. Thank you so much for returning back for another episode of the show. I don't get enough opportunity to really talk with business leaders in the world of what is the business of pharmacy. And when I do get that opportunity, I want to take advantage of it. Really, these cycles, listen, if you're in the business of pharmacy, if you're in community long-term care, specialty, it doesn't matter. You know how small our industry is, and the circles keep moving around, and people do strategic moves to advance not only the business of pharmacy, but their careers. I know a man that has been dedicated to independently owned community pharmacy as well as institutional and specialty pharmacy, really as a business leader. And I've been in touch with this man, Larry Alexander, for probably about 5 years now. I just want to welcome Larry to the show. We have some things to share with Larry about his new endeavors as managing director at First Financial. And with that, Larry, welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Great, Todd. Thank you. It's great to be here with you and with everyone else. Looking forward to the discussion.
So we first crossed paths in the business of pharmacy when you were with McKesson, and you were really leading things there from a GPO strategy perspective, buying groups, helping pharmacies make some financial decisions about growing their own business. What better background to have to be able to take a leadership role in the sensitivity of financing and capital and really the lifeblood of a pharmacy in order to keep moving forward. Tell us about yourself, Larry. Some of the audience and some of our listeners might know you. Give a little bit of background on your managing director role with First Financial Bank.
Sure, Todd. I've been in community pharmacy for 16 years now. As you said, I started out working with one of the wholesalers and wore several different hats over the years with McKesson. Started out as a sales representative, and after a few years moved into a sales manager role, moved from the Texas market into the St. Louis market, and had responsibility for several states and a couple distribution centers and growing our sales and operations. And then after the DSM role, the sales manager role, moved into some strategic projects where we worked on some integrations and acquisitions with some other wholesalers that McKesson purchased, and then had the opportunity to move to our national accounts team, where I spent the last 6 or 7 years of my career working as a vice president of independent national accounts, working very closely with the GPOs, as you said. The GPOs are tremendous advocates for independent pharmacy and really give them a lot of advantages in the industry and leveling the playing field, if you will, with some of the larger chains that you have to compete with in the marketplace. And so it was a tremendous experience for me to work with tremendous McKesson leadership, as well as exceptional buying group leadership and different leaders throughout this industry and segment, to continue to learn about the independent pharmacy perspective from that lens. And the opportunity came about a year or so ago. I joined First Financial Bank, and they've been a partner of McKesson's for a few years. McKesson was one of the pioneers that really tried to get ahead of the curve as far as the ownership transfer opportunity with the industry demographics. So you have the graying of America, all the baby boomers that are looking to retire the next 3 to 5 years, and McKesson wanted to keep independents independent, as well as the buying group partners, and really start networking buyers and sellers together to keep independents healthy as an overall segment. And wholesalers in general don't want to be a lender. They have plenty of other hats they wear. And so McKesson partnered with a financial institution in First Financial Bank. And one of my former McKesson colleagues had done some work over at First Financial Bank, Bob Graul, who you'll be hearing from throughout this series as well. And, had the opportunity to succeed Bob as managing director about a year ago. And it's been a great move for me. Had a great experience the last 15 years. It's just been a nice change. And it's unique for me personally to stay in the industry that I'm passionate about and have invested so much of my career in, yet see it through a very different lens.
Larry, just to let the listeners know, you referenced the series. I'm pretty excited about this because First Financial Bank is going to be sponsoring an ongoing series about the intelligence of financing, leveraging possible buyouts, growing your pharmacy. We're going to hear from Bob Grohl, who's one of your colleagues at First Financial Bank Business Development, as well as Owen Bondurant, who's just an empowerment to this entire mix as we're delivering services to the independent community pharmacy owner. First Financial Bank, very interesting position, the deep roots in the community, first opening way back in 1934. It's interesting, Larry, you're coupling three things from my perspective. One, the deep roots of small business banking, number one. Number two, the pharmacy business expertise of someone who has been saturating in what it is to run a pharmacy, as well as grow the business, acquire new business, sell a business, in the experiences and knowledge that you're bringing to the table, Larry. Number three, the intelligence of some other subject matter experts at this much bigger level with all of the world of analytics and balancing inventory and expanding your pharmacy business. So I'm excited about this series. And with that, really have some stage setting questions for you, Larry. And that is, I'm a small business owner. I have 3 pharmacies. I need to make some changes in my business. I know I'm going to need some capital. I'm going to need some financing. That scenario, Larry, just to kick this off, why is it important to choose the right financial partner?
That's a great question. It's never an easy day in pharmacy. I don't think I've had a repeat day in pharmacy in 16 years, and that personally is very exciting to me. The business continues to evolve and change. And pharmacists, of course, by trade, are trained to practice medicine. They may not have much of that business training. So working with a financial institution like First Financial Bank, as you mentioned, we're nearly 100 years old. We're about $1 billion bank, so we're not real small. We're not a large bank. We're privately held, so we put customers first, not shareholders. And we have, I think, a combined 80 years of pharmacy experience on my team. So people who have owned pharmacies, a pharmacist on staff, people who've bought and sold stores, current pharmacy owners, people who've worked with the wholesalers. So when you're working with a segment like pharmacy where people are trained in medicine and patient care and they don't necessarily have a business training, when you choose a lender that understands your business from essentially every angle of the counter, that goes a long way. We have the flexibility, being the size bank we are, to be creative and do some unique things, and the experience related specifically to pharmacy that we have on our team. And it gives us a unique vantage point when you look at other lenders in the marketplace. So having the right business plan in place if you want to do a startup, understanding what's needed if you're needing to get some finances to do whatever your next business goal is, whether it's acquisition, equipment financing, expansion, remodeling, any refis or startup loans, and we do all of that. So we can help you every step of the way. We have our loan officer involved from start to finish. I think that's unique with a lot of lenders out there. You may speak with a loan officer once, and you're handed off to several people throughout the process. With us, our loan officers are the guys who have that pharmacy experience, so they can help you with that medical background from the business perspective, from the finance perspective, and people who have worked with pharmacists specifically. All of my loan officers across the country have done nothing but pharmacy lending for the last 6 years. We've done close to $200 million in just pharmacy loans. So I think we understand we can't put a product out there and say, here's our shoe, it has to fit. We understand, based on the 100-year history of our bank, what small business is all about. Every situation is different. Everyone has a story. I think our bank and our leadership and our loan committee, certainly our loan officers, understand that. We have to understand what's important to you, what's going on in your situation, and really help you find the best financial solution to help you accomplish your goals.
So as I'm listening, I'm also thinking the other side of the business of pharmacy, and that is opportunity. That is things that are trending in the industry. things that a financing organization like First Financial might have some vision on. And with that, Larry, I'm wondering, what do you see coming in the business of pharmacy? Where do you see an opportunity for small community independent pharmacies to grow, whether that be with lines of credit or expanding through acquisition, or maybe getting into another disease state? Maybe there's a specific, like the world of biosimilars or something like that. But give us some of your vision for the future of small business pharmacy.
Sure. Yeah, I think you're going on the right path with the thoughts that you just shared there. I think if we put those into kind of two different perspectives, first from the financial perspective, we just saw last week the Feds raised the rate a little bit. So we're in a rising rate environment. When you look at the totality of the history of the financial markets, it's still a very good time to get money. It's still costing you a lot less than it has historically. But it is a rising rate environment, but we offer, very competitive rates. There's adjustable rates, typically the industry norm. There's fixed rate options, and we can do longer terms and notes depending on if there's real estate involved. So again, it depends on the situation. From a pharmacy perspective, I think it's all about differentiation. You think about what pharmacy looked like 15 years ago when I started in 2002. Very different than the way it looks today. And as I mentioned earlier, to me, that's one of the most exciting things about this business. It doesn't get boring. When you look at the focus on clinical services, the growth that's anticipated in the specialty segment, long-term care and compounding, more and more states getting to a pharmacist with provider status. How do you continually need to evolve to meet the competition? You look at some of the epidemics that are tackling this country, whether it's weight management or diabetes, there's a lot of ways you can think about how to provide a different level of patient care at your community pharmacy. And it's a very exciting time to be able to do that because not a lot of the big competition can do that. You have that flexibility and the agility of a jet ski. And while they may be more of kind of an aircraft carrier, they aren't as quick to adjust in the market. And that's an advantage that independents have.
So if I'm listening to the show and I kind of want to know why it is I would need financing to expand, for example, why I would need additional capital, the mystery, Larry, of cash flow management has toppled small business before, not knowing how to manage that. What other things can our listeners who are listening today reach out to you for? Kind of give us kind of a little bit of a menu before we wrap up this segment and then get on with Mr. Bob Grohl.
Sure. When you think about, the experience that our folks have, we've seen a lot of different scenarios out there in pharmacy and understanding what you need from a cash flow perspective. Again, whether it's acquisition or equipment or, starting to continue to differentiate your business in a clinical way. Our folks are very focused on that and can find solutions to help you meet those needs. There's just a tremendous amount of information and resources out there. We have a lot of great information on our website. When you think about where pharmacy's going, you look at NCPA statistics, it's certainly getting to be where there's more consolidators in the marketplace. So you have, I think the average, independent owner has like 1.8 or 2.1 stores now. 10 years ago, that was, basically one location, and 10 years from now, I'm sure that's probably going to be 3 or 4 locations. So you really need to think about, if you're an independent pharmacist, not where am I today or where am I tomorrow, but 3, 5, 7 years from now, what does my business need to look like? And how do I need to get there? And how do I find the right partner who understands the business and, of course, the financial need to help you accomplish those goals? Because you have to go from, a pharmacist in charge role to, if you're getting into multi-locations or getting into new clinical services, you're going from a pharmacist in charge kind of a setting to more of a CEO mindset. And so if you don't have all that business training, what do you need to do to have, good financials in place? What's an appropriate amount to be spending on marketing? If I have a passion for doing marketing, if I don't, I need to find somebody on my team that can do that. How does that cash flow? How do I prepare for that? Some of those things that pharmacists may not have a lot of experience in or a lot of training in, that's where I think we can be an effective partner. We have a lot of folks we work with who come to us on 3 or 4 different occasions as they've grown their business to single store operation to multiple locations. And the good thing about our partnership is they know us and we know them. So if they have an opportunity to jump on a store that's up for sale and beat a chain to the punch kind of thing, we're able to execute very quickly on that because we've got that working relationship. They know they can trust us to work through what's needed to accomplish the business goals. We know their financial situation, their business situation, so it seems to be a strong partnership.
So to get a hold of you, your email is lalexander@ffb1.com. It's going to be in the show notes, but once again, L as in Larry, Alexander@ffb1.com. Larry, I really appreciate you sharing your vision. Anything before we bring Bob onto the show to talk about the world of developing new business in pharmacy and expanding your business in pharmacy?
No, we appreciate the folks listening. And again, you can find out more at ffb1.com. We'd love to just have a conversation with you and see if there's an opportunity to work with you. So we appreciate what all of you do. Community pharmacy is a very strong industry, and I think while its challenges exist, the best days are ahead, and we're thankful to be a part of it.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Hey, and continuing our series with First Financial Bank, I want to bring on a veteran of the industry who really understands building an independent community pharmacy from the ground up, financing, inventory, things that are really pressing against the pharmacy owners today, including things like DIR fees and how to kind of get over that hump. I think there's some exciting things happening in our industry. What I've really been excited after we were talking to Larry, what we just heard from Larry, was the fact that if we can all do this in pieces and come together and rely on an organization that knows what they're doing, especially from that capital side of things, you don't have to do this yourself. So let's bring on Mr. Bob Grohl. Bob, welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Show in the First Financial Bank series. We're really excited to have you here.
Todd, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be with you this morning.
So before I know who you are, I look up to you. I think that you've done some amazing things in your career. Every time you attach yourself to an organization, you're bringing tremendous value. But some of our listeners might not know you. So just give us a little background in your world of what you've done in the pharmacy industry.
Oh, thank you. My career is kind of varied. I graduated from pharmacy school back when compounding was part of your scope of practice, your everyday practice. It wasn't a separate industry. But once I graduated from pharmacy school, Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, back in the 60s, I worked some retail. I was inpatient pharmacy supervisor at the VA in La Jolla, California, for about 7 or 8 years. And then I left the VA, went back into retail, and in 85 bought our first store, owned stores in San Diego for about 25 years. Sold the main one that I owned entirely without partners, and retired. And then was recruited by McKesson to develop a program for them to assist independent community pharmacies when they go for sale, to bring another independent in to keep the chains from buying them. As you know, when a chain buys a independent store, they basically transfer the prescriptions to their nearest location and close that outlet. So we were trying to preserve that for the community, obviously for McKesson, but independent community pharmacy really does bring value to a community. If you go into any independent community pharmacy, pretty much you'll see plaques for Little League and soccer, and they support the community. There was a study, I think, if I recall, I saw somewhere along the line, I think it was at a University of Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken, that when an independent community pharmacy closes, the surrounding businesses take about a 12 or what hit in sales. So they are important, and we developed that program into a very robust program, the RX ownership program for McKesson. I did that for about 8 years, retired again, and then a bank out of El Dorado, Arkansas, First Financial Bank, recruited me to run their SBA lending program for pharmacists who are trying to buy a practice, expand, and develop their pharmacy. So I did that for about 3 years. Retired again, but they didn't want me to leave, so now I work part-time in business development. We hired Larry Alexander, who you've already heard from, a very bright, energetic young man, and he's going to do great with the business. So I have kind of a perspective from a variety of areas. The experience I had at the VA and in the hospital kind of brings that institutional perspective to retail. Which is, kind of shades some of my thinking and development. And then, obviously, I owned pharmacies and ran them, and also know the wholesale and the finance side of the business. So, kind of had a rounded career, I guess you would say, Todd.
Yeah, Bob, I like the fact that you've seen where we've come from, which is an education in itself. There are a lot of pharmacy owners, Bob, who are of the age, my age, for example, 46 years old. And if I came into pharmacy ownership at this time in my life, there's a lot of things that have happened in the past that I wouldn't have been exposed to, that wouldn't have given me that education that I should know as a pharmacy owner moving forward, because things have changed. And one of those things is choosing a lending partner and why you've chosen that lending partner. You can go to this generic bank in your hometown, or a national or even international global lender who doesn't understand the business of pharmacy. And I think you're at a disadvantage. So I want you to tell our listeners, when you look at this from an owner's perspective and kind of getting yourself out of your shoes and putting yourself in their shoes, what should you be looking for in a lender, literally, for if you want to have capital, you want to have financing, you want to have this partner backing you? What do you look for?
First off, when I was in business, I always felt that you have to match the size of your business to the size of the bank. If you're a very small business in a very big bank, it's a challenge to deal with a very large bank. And so, First Financial Bank is a community bank. They have brick and mortar offices and branches in Arkansas and Mississippi. And they are a community bank. And so when I came on board as managing director, one of the things that they had and I wanted to maintain is that even though we work nationally, we still present and act like and treat our customers as if we were their small local community bank. And that's important. The second thing I think that's really important is knowledge and experience of the industry. You have to work with a team that knows pharmacy, knows what's going on in pharmacy, knows the issues of that the owners are facing, and understand what the future may bring. So we have a team that has, I think Larry mentioned, I believe he said 80 years of experience. I unfortunately, being old, bring a lot of that experience to the team. But our team understands pharmacy. We have, myself, who I've owned stores, I bought and sold stores. We have a current pharmacy owner. We have people that have been in the wholesale industry, in the banking industry, and we understand the day-to-day workings of a pharmacy and what their challenges are. I think that's critically important. We also, being a privately held bank, our main focus is on our customers. We're not focused on making money for the stockholders. So, I think those are important things. The experience, though, and the understanding of pharmacy, I think, is the key thing.
So when we talk about financing, that seems kind of wide and obscure in some ways. Yeah. And we could talk about new machinery, automation, marketing, buying another store, preparing for sale so you can do something else. Maybe you want to drop from 5 locations down to 2 locations and start getting into specialty. Whatever that is, you need the type of guidance from an organization and people who understand those scenarios. So of all these years of business in your book of encyclopedia of what is the business of pharmacy, what would you say are some of the blind spots that pharmacy owners just don't get sometimes when they're actually entering in the space of this growth mode and or expansion time mode, and they want to grow, but they're not quite sure to all of these, what we call blind spots in financing? So just go through that with us.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting because pharmacy owners typically are pharmacists, and in today's world, especially your age and younger, Todd, they're highly trained clinical pharmacists. Having gone through pharmacy school, having met and lectured at pharmacy schools, I was adjunct professor at several schools in Southern California. The amount of business background that the typical graduate gets is very minimal. Just from a personal standpoint, when we got the first store I bought in 1985, we were running probably 5% of our sales were third-party sales. But between 85 and 95, that went from 5% to 90%. And as you know, the margins went, I think we started at AWP plus $5. And as you know, that those margins were dramatically reduced. Along the way, I recognized I had no financial background, so I went to night school and got an MBA. So I think that, one of the blind spots is that these particularly younger owners coming into the industry really have little financial background. So, picking a partner that will work with them and help them on some of those issues, I think is very important. I can't tell you how many people I've worked with over the years who were looking to buy a store when I asked them to put together a pro forma spreadsheet for the income statement, they had no idea how to do that or what that meant. So I think one of the things that I would recommend is, one, they need to get some financial background. Now, not everybody has to go back to school and get an MBA, but just taking some courses or doing some reading or listening to podcasts, that type of thing, to get some financial background would be important. But then picking a partner that is willing to help you with that, I think is one of the key blind spots. Other than that, I think there's a lot of blind spots when they go to buy a store or sell a store. Such as are there financial statements in order? If you're buying a store, are you looking at good financial statements? If you're selling a store, are your financial statements in good order? Are they prepared by a qualified accountant? That's one thing that we really struggle with in the industry of getting people to understand that they have to have good books. And make sure that they present well when they're either going for sale or when they're buying a store.
Up next is pharmacy owner and pharmacy business consultant owner Owen Bondurant, and he's with Independent RX Consulting. Bob, interesting guy to talk to because of the two sides, the consulting side that's actually helping other pharmacy owners, but then he's preaching from a pulpit that he's actually built himself because he's a pharmacy owner. So we're really looking forward to that interview to kind of round out this three-part of this in total interview, and really thank First Financial Bank for sponsoring this.
You're quite welcome. And we've worked with Owen. I've worked with Owen personally for many years prior to coming to the bank. Being with McKesson, we worked with Owen. A great guy, very smart, and their program again is much like the bank in that they understand the industry. They're there to help, and what we've seen is people that work with, as I said, pick your partners. The bank is more than willing and able to help you through the process and give you advice on and instruction on financing and how to get the financing. Owen also does a lot of work within the pharmacy as far as helping people to their process and the internal workings of the pharmacy. And so the stores that I've worked with Owen tend to be extremely successful. He's a great guy, and that should be a terrific interview for you, Todd.
So let's make sure we have you back on the show, Bob. You bring a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge about the business of pharmacy. We could pick a myriad of topics and throw at you to be able to get some insights. But just thank you for being part of this series.
Oh, you're quite welcome, and I'd be happy to be back. We can reconnect anytime you'd like, Todd. And as you said, if you pick the topic, and I'm sure I can probably talk about it because, as we've said, I've kind of seen the industry from a bunch of different sides. So I'd be happy to come back and speak with you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bob Grohl, First Financial Bank, on the podcast series, and we look forward to the future and what we're going to be able to do for community pharmacy. Thank you.
Thank you. And just one last word, and that's myself and the bank are very optimistic about the future of pharmacy. We think it's bright. The people coming in are bright young people starting new programs, going into new areas of practice, and we're pretty excited about it. So thanks for having us, and really a pleasure to speak with you, Todd. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Hey, and continuing with the series on First Financial Bank, what I'm excited about is our last of the 3-part within this staging podcast. Someone very unique, someone who understands the business of pharmacy, not only as an owner, not only as a family owner and multi-pharmacy location owner, but someone who also consults and helps other pharmacy owners apply better knowledge of what is the business of pharmacy and how this relates back to funding, finances, expansion, probably even some marketing, obviously, because you can never stop marketing. Owen Bondurant, how are you? Welcome to this series, First Financial Bank podcast series. How are you today?
Doing great, Todd. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk with you today.
I am as well. So before we get into this interview, got a lot of questions for you. Want you to give our listeners a little background on yourself and your companies.
Yeah, sure. I've been in pharmacy for well over 30 years, which is kind of amazing because I'm only 38. I've been working in stores since I was about 5.
We call that a hustler, by the way. You have hustled. You are a go guy, just like me.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's definitely how I am. And I wanted to be like my dad and my family and another family. We currently own 3 retail pharmacies, and then we have a long-term care pharmacy and a compounding pharmacy. And so I would go in at age 5 and clean shelves and do vials. I mean, mostly because I wanted to be by my dad, and then he would pay me a candy bar. In retrospective, I probably should have got paid money, but that's fine. And as I grew, I did tech. I took out trash, anything that needed to be done. I actually, at a college, started a DME company for our pharmacies and grew that. And then I helped us. We actually expanded from 3 stores up to 17 at one point, and did startups and purchases there. I'm not a pharmacist, so I have a marketing degree, and so all my time has been spent on the business of pharmacy, which is why I was on the sales and marketing side, and is really what's led me to independent RX consulting, which is where I do primarily today. I'm the president of that company and been running and growing that for the past 4 years. And similar to your business, independent RX consulting, what we do there is we're doing a really, hands-on, high engagement consulting, where we'll take someone from CVS and have them go find, and we'll help them find and start and buy a pharmacy for the first time. And then we teach them how to operate that store profitably. And really our goal here is to take a pharmacist and create a strong and educated owner and turn them into a CEO rather than a clinical pharmacist. I mean, many of them are really, really great on the clinical side, but they have no experience to know how to be a business owner. And that's
Right.
what we're trying to do in the
Absolutely.
industry.
So what's kind of cool about this is the fact that you can wrap this back into strategy in better financing and better capital leverage and better expansion of your services or technology or marketing or business development or how you should be spending the money. When someone
Right.
says, I want to grow my pharmacy, obviously they think I'm going to have to get a lender, which is true. Yeah. But if you don't have a strategy of why you're getting that money, how you're going to spend that money, and how it's going to be more effective so that you can make sure that you have a plan that covers paying it back as you move forward, that's the 360-degree strategy and vision that you're bringing to the table, Owen. That's kind of what gets me excited. So with that, why FFB? Why First Financial Bank? Why choose them?
Well, I mean, they're just First Financial. They're just so easy to work with. They're small enough in that you get a loan officer who you can get to know. They understand your problems, and you're a little nervous, right? I mean, you may have a store and you're going to buy another store, and that could actually ruin your entire business. And you're asking this person to give you the right amount of money, and you need someone that you can trust. And when you're just working with a loan officer who understands you, it just makes it so much easier and less stressful. And then at the same time, they're big enough, as I think I heard Larry say earlier, that, they have the resources, right, to help you. And that is huge. I mean, again, a lot of times this is a pharmacist who's not quite an owner yet, or is in the early stages of being owner, and having someone you can call and run ideas by and get processes for, that is just very valuable to a business owner.
So in this podcast series upcoming, this is the first of 3 that are being sponsored by First Financial. But what's really exciting for me is when I interview pharmacy owners, and then in your case, somebody who actually digs down into the strategic leverage of knowledge to get more out of your pharmacy business, you're coming back to the Pharmacy Podcast Network, I guarantee it, because I think there's other interviews that you and I are going to be able to do with pharmacy owners and really taking what independent RX consulting is doing and really kind of get that out there. Because if you're listening to the show, independentrxconsulting.com is the website where it can reference some of what Owen's doing. But think about this, folks. You guys are running pharmacies. If you need the capital, but you also need the expertise, how to leverage the capital even better, therein lies where First Financial Bank is going to help you. But also on top of that, now we have somebody that's exposed themselves on the show, on the network, to really plug into getting some of the ideas from a business development perspective. Because you are clinicians. You guys are the ones that have spent 6, 8, 10, 12 and ongoing continuing education years on the clinical business of pharmacy, but not on the business of pharmacy side. So, Owen, I thank you for being here and kicking off this series sponsored by First Financial Bank. Anything in closing that you can give so that our listeners can reach out to you?
Again, the website's independentrxconsulting.com. And we have a lot of resources on that site about starting, buying, operating stores. And you can feel free to reach out at me. I'm at Owen at independentrxconsulting.com. And that's Owen, OWEN, at independentrxconsulting.com. And I really appreciate the time and want to stress to people that, really look at innovating and changing your pharmacy and really testing things and seeing how you can be a better business. And then once you have an idea, go back to these back to First Financial, and they can help you make sure that you don't come into a cash flow problem due to growth, and support you that way. So I really appreciate the time, Todd.
You're very welcome, Owen. I thank you. I mean, this is exciting for me because I'm out here talking about pharmacy owners actually doing this, and sometimes I don't have the correct individual to kind of reach out and guide them towards. So like I said, you got to come back on the network and we'll talk more about this.
Yeah, happy to do so. Yeah, it'd be fun.
So you're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network's dedicated series to the business of pharmacy. This has been sponsored by First Financial Bank. You can find more about them at ffb1.com. Once again, that's FFB, First Financial Bank, 1.com. And we thank you so much for listening to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network's Pharmacy Business Series, sponsored by First Financial Bank. To gain an advantage in your pharmacy business's needs for growing, expanding, selling, or financial strategy, reach out to the First Financial Bank's pharmacy business team. Go to ffb1.com and contact Larry Alexander for more information, or Google FFB1 Pharmacy. That's FFB1 Pharmacy. We thank First Financial Bank for sponsoring this Pharmacy Podcast Network Pharmacy Business Series. Be sure to listen to other pharmacy podcasts on the network and stay tuned for other First Financial Bank podcasts coming soon.